I'm Fran Visco, 23-year breast cancer survivor and president of the National Breast Cancer Coalition. 20 years ago this month, the National Breast Cancer Coalition was formed with one mission: the end of breast cancer. And we spent the last 20 years pushing toward that mission. What have we learned? We now know that tinkering with the status quo is not the answer. We took a bold step when we launched NBCC. We knew that advocates could make a real difference. We changed breast cancer research, public policy, access to care. But we did not get close enough to our ultimate goal, the end of breast cancer. No matter what we have done, no matter what progress in breast cancer you may hear about, it hasn't been enough. And you heard that from all of our panelists yesterday. Nowhere near enough. We need to do better. We need to do it all differently. And the National Breast Cancer Coalition will. Everyone here cares about breast cancer, and you have to care a great deal to be part of the National Breast Cancer Coalition, to give up your time and energy to come here to Washington, D.C. for several days to listen to and learn difficult information, to walk the halls of Congress. You not only care, if you want to be a part of NBCC, you actually want to bring about real change in breast cancer. Our history, our actions show that we are a serious organization, strategic and focused and ferocious. But as you will see Monday night, we also know how to dance. Now, I was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 39 years old. I'm a survivor of young breast cancer, and that was 23 years ago. I was a partner in a law firm, the mother of a 14-month-old son, a community volunteer. I started my breast cancer work with the Linda Creed Breast Cancer Foundation in Philadelphia, and they did the very important work that many groups do: outreach, raising awareness, providing support and information, and helping underserved women with access to care. And I am an activist. I'm a very fortunate activist because in 1991, a small group of women came together and invited groups from across the country to hear about an idea, a coalition of organizations to focus on political activism, to change the systems of breast care research, access to care, to figure out how we could influence all of the arenas that affect breast cancer. That meeting was my introduction to the National Breast Cancer Coalition. The women in the room that day were not there to develop a marketing plan or figure out how to raise money. They were there to do the very hard work of seriously, strategically analyzing the complexities of the issues and asking what was needed to end breast cancer. Now, you've heard this saying, "We stand in the shadow of giants." That is so very true for everyone in this room, and certainly for me. I stand in the shadow of incredible women who started this movement, who kept it alive, and for many they did so while breast cancer took their lives. They had the courage and the vision to push for an end to breast cancer, not just more money for research or a new drug or a new way to find breast cancer. They reached beyond all of those usual expectations to the end of breast cancer. We must always remember and pay tribute to those leaders who are gone. Pam Onder, Pat Barr, whose two daughters, Shira and Tava, are here and who are part of the National Breast Cancer Coalition. And Sheila was on this stage yesterday, a stage where Pat Barr stood for so many years. Kendra McCarthy, Karen Noss, Annette Drummond, Ginny Sofa, Marsha Pretsky, Denise Smith-Jones, Jan Ike-Swikert, Ronnie Rosenberg, Becky Morris, Carolina Hinestrosa. too many others. Now, they were not a part of NBCC to cure their breast cancer. It wasn't about them. They launched and nurtured this movement for their daughters, their granddaughters, their sons, for future generations. Many of our member organizations focus on extremely important specific issues: young survival, HER2, metastatic disease, triple negative, disparities, and they should. But this is where you come to work on the overarching issues in breast cancer, on the strategy to end breast cancer. When we launched NBCC, we invited people to come together to seriously look at that question. What will it take? A revolution? How can we get the right research done? How do we change the systems of healthcare, guarantee access to everyone to the right care? But the women in that room in 1991 were not and are not content with only talking about what needs to be done. They carried that talk into action, and they launched this amazing revolution that is the National Breast Cancer Coalition. We are here, I am here, because of them. The fact that they are not here is one more piece of painful evidence that while we have come far, we may have more drugs, we may have newer and fancier technology, and much more awareness, and a list of accomplishments, we haven't ended breast cancer. It is just not enough. Our revolution must grow. We need to be even more bold. We need to be even more courageous. They are standing here with me as I tell you, in 1991, we set a mission to end breast cancer, and now we set a deadline. Last year, I stood here and I promised you, as you heard, that over the coming year, you would hear about a number of changes. And I promised you that if you stick with NBCC, even though it's about to get even more difficult, even more controversial, you will see what real success is, that we are moving closer and closer to our goal. My goal, again, is truly to lead NBCC to its demise, because it will have reached its mission. We can make that happen, and I am going to Tuscany when it does. Now, many of you are new to this conference, and some of you are new to NBCC. So I want to give you a brief overview of 20 years of accomplishments, but it will be brief, because today is not about the past. It's about a future with no breast cancer and a plan of action to get there. Now, as you listen to these accomplishments, remember this: every single one of them, every single thing we set out to achieve was considered controversial at the time. We were usually the only voice demanding change, and not just demanding it, we made it happen. Look at the major achievements in breast cancer advocacy over the past 20 years. The Department of Defense Breast Cancer Research Program, that exists because of the National Breast Cancer Coalition. In 1992, we analyzed the status quo and determined that scientists could absorb an additional $300 million for research on breast cancer. It was $100 million at the time. We had no interest in throwing money at the disease. We wanted to know what was the right amount of money. And the DoD program came about in response to our $300 million more campaign against much opposition. And we keep that program going with our continued advocacy. More than $2.5 billion to date from the defense budget alone to the worldwide breast cancer research community because of the National Breast Cancer Coalition. But we know that it is not just about money. How is that money being spent? We created unprecedented training programs like Project LEAD to educate advocates in the language and concepts of science so that they could oversee research and collaborate to create new models of science. We created a system of access to care for underserved and underserved women across the country, because we said screening without treatment makes no sense. And the CDC Breast and Cervical Cancer Treatment Program is a piece of legislation that we conceived of, we designed, and we pushed to get enacted into law against much opposition. We insisted that advocates be at the table at peer review and sitting on other research panels and institutional review boards. Again, NBCC brought us to that peer review table against much opposition. The first targeted therapy for breast cancer, Herceptin, NBCC was there as an unprecedented, controversial role working on the clinical trials to help make it happen. Again, unprecedented, against opposition, controversial. These are just some of our accomplishments. We faced controversy, we overcame much opposition to achieve those goals. And they are great accomplishments. But this is not success. Now, there are many who shy away from controversy. They're frightened by the idea of revolution. They don't believe we can end breast cancer. NBCC is not for those people. Because if you're satisfied with what we've done, with what has happened in breast cancer, if you think it's enough, if you think everything's going in the right direction and at a pace you're happy with, if you're convinced we have most of the answers we need, NBCC is not for you. But if you recognize that while we have accomplished much, we have not succeeded, if you see that we need to ramp up our revolution in breast cancer, and know that that revolution has to be led by trained, educated, empowered activists, well, you're in the right place. If you know that thoughtful, strategic advocacy and hard work are the bases of the revolution to end breast cancer, then you are in the right place. Then NBCC is for you. To reach success, we have to view everything with a critical eye. We have to analyze before we act. For NBCC, it's not enough to just pin a breast cancer label on something. That label does not automatically mean it is important or that we should support it. We ask hard questions, and we make very difficult decisions. We're not here to be popular or well-liked. A victory in name only is not enough for the National Breast Cancer Coalition. We bring about real change, not just the promise of it. It's 20 years after the founding of NBCC. We all have lots of other places we can be. After 20 years, the leadership of this organization asked, does the world of breast cancer still need the National Breast Cancer Coalition? There are thousands of breast cancer groups across the country. We are awash in a sea of pink. What do we bring to the table? What difference can we make? Sure, we have that list of accomplishments, but what real difference can we continue to make? The status quo will continue if we're here or not. We are needed. We are needed to bring a focus and a plan of action on the ultimate goal, ending breast cancer. The National Breast Cancer Coalition challenges the status quo, and we figure out how to change it. We embrace advocacy, and we understand that you are the real leaders in breast cancer. We want to help you learn to think critically, to make certain you use your amazing abilities and focus on the issues like the environment with an overarching strategic approach. This is all very tough stuff. I've said this to you before. You can sit back and wait for the next new thing in breast cancer, or you can be a part of deciding what that next new thing should be and make it happen. That's not easy, but that's the National Breast Cancer Coalition. You can just read the headlines or listen to your doctor, or you can understand what it all means, know what the truth is, and what to do about it. That's not so easy, but that's the National Breast Cancer Coalition. You can bow your head when we lose another life to breast cancer, or you can say, no more. You can recognize how little we know. You can speak up and out, challenge business as usual, and change it. Anything less is not enough for the National Breast Cancer Coalition. You know, I've heard it said that NBCC is difficult. It's true. And people say that the National Breast Cancer Coalition is controversial. Yes, we are. I'm proud of that, and you should be too. We're here to succeed, and that means pushing up against business as usual. We're here to succeed, but let's define success. For too long, we've been taught to lower our expectations. Some believe it's enough to successfully increase money for research. No, not enough. Some believe it's enough to have drugs that extend life for 2 months, or not even that stop a tumor from growing without extending life 1 minute at a cost of tens of thousands of dollars. Not enough. Some believe it's enough to expand insurance coverage to almost everyone, most of whom will struggle paying for it. Not enough. Here's what is enough: the end of breast cancer, and we will settle for no less. So here we are, 20 years after NBCC's founding. Are we close? Nowhere near close enough. Has there been progress? Of course, but not enough. Yesterday, you heard a discussion of what has happened in breast cancer. Where are we now? And after the next plenary session, and not a moment earlier, NBCC will release the first of what will be annual progress reports in breast cancer. Now, this year's report is a baseline. It's an overview of breast cancer trends, research, advocacy, and public policy. It sheds light on the realities of breast cancer, and it gives an advocate perspective on the issues. It will not make some of you happy. But if we are serious about ending breast cancer, and NBCC is, we must understand the reality of the disease at every level. And no matter how much that understanding makes us uncomfortable, or challenges our long-held beliefs, we have to accept it. Given the attention and the resources directed to breast cancer, the public understandably believes that we've made significant progress. The reality of the disease is much harder to accept. Here it is, 2011, and many of you will likely be surprised at how little we know and how little change there has been in the important outcomes, preventing breast cancer in the first place and preventing deaths from it. This, despite years and decades of campaigns to raise awareness, ever-expanding screening programs, increasing fundraising efforts, and research. Let's look at a few facts. In 1975, a woman had a 1 in 11 chance of invasive breast cancer in her lifetime. Now that risk is 1 in 8, 50% greater. Worldwide, 1.4 million women were diagnosed with breast cancer in 2008. In 2010, in this country, that estimate was 261,000 women and 1,970 men. We've seen some progress. We've extended life for some women with metastatic disease. Mortality rates have declined slightly. But breast cancer remains the second leading cause of cancer death for women in the United States and the leading cause of cancer death for women globally. In this country, in 2010, we lost 39,820 women and 390 men to breast cancer, and that number is more than 450,000 worldwide. In 1991, in the United States, 119 women died of breast cancer every day. Almost 20 years and billions of private and public research dollars later, that number is 110 every day. That's one death every 14 minutes. that should not be considered success or even meaningful progress by anyone's standards. And this is a very important fact. The incidence of women diagnosed with advanced breast cancer has not changed. The rates of diagnoses of truly lethal disease have remained stable since 1975. Now, we've made some progress in breast cancer treatments. As you heard yesterday, we've learned more about the biology of the disease, that not all breast cancers are the same, and we've been able to develop treatment targeted to some subtypes. But our knowledge of the biology of breast cancer has not been translated into many new therapies to treat it. We do not have a cure. Ironically, much of the recent progress in breast cancer has been in doing less. We went from everyone getting a mastectomy to less invasive surgery, and more recently, to less invasive lymph node surgery. These are two very important developments, and they have a major impact on quality of life, but they do not change the mortality statistics. We've made some progress in convincing Congress and the administration that they must pay attention to breast cancer. We, NBCC more than anyone, knows that breast cancer is a political issue. Funding for research, access to health care, the regulatory process for drug approval, and health insurance are just some of the issues that are determined through the political process. Since 1991, over 830 resolutions and bills with the word breast cancer have been introduced in the United States Congress, and about 53 have become reality. Now, does that add up to success? No. All laws are not created equal. These laws range from the meaningful, such as the CDC Breast and Cervical Cancer Treatment Act, to an authorizing law to light the St. Louis Arch pink in October. Now, we've spent billions of dollars deepening our understanding of breast cancer. We developed incredible technology to help find answers. We've convinced those in power that government has a role in our mission. And it is now time to harness all of this knowledge, all of these tools, all of this power. It is time for a new approach and a focus on a goal, not the goal of a new drug or a new way to find cancer. That's not enough. Not yet another resolution to declare support for all of us. The goal needs to be the end of breast cancer. It is time. What will end breast cancer? The right action. 20 years ago, we declared a mission, and now we declare a deadline. Breast Cancer Deadline 2020, the end of breast cancer by 2020. The end of breast cancer in 10 years. Does it sound impossible? Well, we cured polio in 7. A deadline changes everything. It makes the impossible possible. Look at the Apollo project to land a man on the moon. What seemed unimaginable became reality because there was a deadline, strong leadership, and strategic vision. Will it be challenging to meet that deadline? Absolutely. Will it be controversial to try? Without question. There is no question in my mind that this will be one of the most difficult things any of us has ever undertaken. But that is how it should be. We have to end our addiction to comfortable, to easy, to good enough. This will require all of us who care to play a role in this campaign, all of us to find the will, the strength, the belief to do what it takes to achieve the end of breast cancer. This conference is designed to help you understand your role and to realize that we can and will reach that deadline. Today, you will hear about different models of innovation, begin to learn about how to succeed against different challenges. You will hear about some of the barriers and why the war on cancer failed, and you will begin to understand how we will succeed. You will see that it will take all of us working together to change 20 years of incremental progress and inspire a decade of unparalleled achievement. Breast Cancer Deadline 2020, it's not just words. It is not a PR campaign. It is a strategic plan of action to change behavior, to change the conversation within the scientific community, the media, government, and advocacy. Everywhere breast cancer decisions are made. What is that plan? Each year, the vast majority of research funding is directed toward finding new drugs to treat breast cancer. That work will continue without the National Breast Cancer Coalition. We want to focus on two areas that do not get a great deal of attention. Primary prevention. How do we stop people from getting breast cancer? And the causes and prevention of metastasis. How do we stop people from dying of it? Tomorrow you will hear experts talk about the status of knowledge in those areas, and they will give you some sense of how to begin to answer those questions. As part of this plan, this year we are holding 2 summits, one on each topic, bringing together an invited group of scientists, advocates, regulators, industry, media, and others to develop strategic plans to address those issues. And we plan catalytic projects around the major issues that are identified at the summits. We've begun the process with our Artemis project, a collaboration of many stakeholders led by advocates designing a plan to develop a preventive vaccine in breast cancer. We also have a plan of action to involve government in the Deadline campaign. We recently convened a small group of individuals who think innovatively about how governments should work and what role they play in research and healthcare. And the outcome of that public policy roundtable is accelerating the End of Breast Cancer Act. This act will promote the goals of the Deadline campaign, and it will support the role that the federal government must play in this effort. You are going to spend time on Capitol Hill this Tuesday talking to your members of Congress about this bill. And tomorrow morning, you will hear experts talk about the barriers to success in Congress. How can we get something done in this atmosphere? We must change the conversation in the media away from mammograms and early detection and to a focus on ending the disease. Later today, you will hear a bit about the challenges we face in that arena, but we have a plan to overcome them. But a plan of action directed to science, healthcare community, the media, and government is not enough. We, the advocacy community, must change our behavior because this will not happen without us. We are the only ones with no agenda other than to end breast cancer. The purpose of Breast Cancer Deadline 2020 is to create a paradigm shift in the breast cancer world, to change the conversation, to refocus resources and efforts to the area that will lead us to the goal of ending breast cancer. Will it work? A collaborative, deadline-driven mission approach to breast cancer has never been tried. But examples of success in other fields show us that often it's the lack of vision, willpower, accountability, and leadership, not how much we know or where the science is, that stymies progress. It's all up to you. You have the power to do this. No one else does or will. That's why you're here. But it is not just about the 4 days you're here in Washington. You must go back to your communities, including your virtual communities, and truly change the conversation. Move from awareness to action. Move from detection and screening to prevention, to the Deadline campaign, to the end of breast cancer. Wherever breast cancer is discussed, move that discussion to the Deadline. Whatever you do, do it in the context of the Deadline. Everything that happens in breast cancer should happen in this context. How does it move us closer to ending breast cancer? How does it move us closer to the deadline? At this conference, you will receive the tools and a toolkit to help you with this work. Now, remember that list of all the great things we've accomplished in 20 years against much opposition and amid much controversy? Well, this will be our biggest challenge, but you are up to it. It is time. Breast Cancer Deadline 2020. What if we fail? Well, we already have. 40,000 women in this country this year, and future generations, by 2030, with no major changes in prevention and treatment, it's estimated that close to 750,000 women will die each year worldwide from breast cancer. You know, these aren't merely statistics. They represent millions of lives, and these losses are unacceptable. Should the fear of failure make us pause? Why would it? Why should it? Timidity has never been a hallmark of the National Breast Cancer Coalition. And what is the alternative? More of the same. Business as usual, those low expectations. Is the alternative safer? Yes, if you're afraid to lose face. No, if you are afraid to continue to lose so many lives to breast cancer. You know, what is that saying? I think we're in it to win it. Not to talk about maybe someday, hopefully, winning it. We're in it to get it done. We've spent 20 years building this amazing coalition, and we are ready to put it all on the line. We are ready to be on the clock. The countdown to the end of breast cancer. Otherwise, what is our purpose? Why are we here? What do we bring to the world of breast cancer? We're here to end breast cancer, not to tweak it a bit. The goal is not to create better tools to identify breast cancer or better mechanisms to manage it. The goal is to take what's known, build upon that knowledge for the sole purpose of ending breast cancer. You have the opportunity to make history. Breast Cancer Deadline 2020. My question today is simple. Are you with us?